Hello, everyone. We want to get done with this pretty quick. We have two special guests here. From the Commerce, Science, and Transportation, we have Senator Ted Cruz and of course, Senator Maria Cantwell from Washington State. One's a Republican, Senator Cruz. The other one's a Democrat. Makes no difference in this situation. And here we go. Campaign contribution farce. Confucius once said that all contributions to politicians run for office is handed to him or her for subjection and control. This is forever the purpose of campaign contributions. Now, here we go. Tigers with no teeth. The April 2nd, 2025 Boeing hearing, Maria Cantwell's campaign cash, and the corporate capture of Congress. April 2nd, 2025 will go down in history as a masterclass in political theater, a circus sideshow performed under the illusion of oversight. In Washington, D.C., the Senate Commerce Committee summoned Boeing CEO Kelly Oberg for a public inquisition led by Chairman Ted Cruz and Chairwoman Maria Cantwell. The room was set, the lights were bright, and the public tuned in. But what we witnessed was not justice. It was kabuki theater, a performance. And those pretending to hold power, Cantwell and Cruz, turned out to be nothing more than toothless tigers. Let me tell you what really happened, may I? After Ted Cruz spent time venting that the U.S. Army failed to provide answers about the recent helicopter crash over the Potomac River, despite the generous 72-hour deadline, I raised my hand. It had been 5 days since I personally sent him a comprehensive booklet on Boeing's quality failures. It exposed 22 years of unchecked corruption and monopoly of accreditation and violations of antitrust law under the Sherman-Clayton Act. What is the Sherman-Clayton Act? Very easy, ladies and gentlemen. The Sherman-Clayton Act of 1890 and the Clayton Act of 1914 are federal laws designed to prevent monopolies and promote fair competition. These laws prohibit companies from engaging in anti-competitive practices such as price fixing, collusion, and exclusive control of markets. In Boeing's case, by controlling the entire accreditation chain through the American National Standards Institute and the American National Crediting Board, while enforcing those standards on suppliers but avoiding them itself, it has created a certification cartel that strangles small businesses, eliminates inspection, and places monopoly profits above public safety. So when I asked Cruz directly, did you receive the book that I sent you? Instead of an answer, I got a threat. His gavel struck, order, I will throw you out. Guards rushed in. But Cruz didn't tell them to remove me. They acted on their own, just like the Army had ignored his request for information about the crash. That's how much respect these institutions have for these so-called tigers of oversight. As I walked out on my own terms, the guards apologized to me. I asked, did you hear what he said? They said they did, but the damage was done. Moments later, Maria Cantwell sent 2 aides after me. I handed them the very book that I gave Cruz. One promised a follow-up from their AEROSPACE team. That was a week ago. Radio silence since. Why? Because this hearing was never meant to uncover anything. It was political theater to appease the public and protect the donor class. Let's talk about Senator Cantwell, shall we? She chairs the Commerce Committee overseeing aviation. She also represents Washington State, where I was out there in October of 2024. Boeing's home turf. Between 2012 and 23, she received over $120,000 in campaign contributions from Boeing, including $82,613 in the first 3 quarters of 2023 alone. That's not oversight, that's ownership. The American National Standards Institute and the American National Crediting Board were originally separate entities, but in 2018, ANSI took over complete control over ANAB. Although they continue to operate under separate names, these two organizations, now under the same ownership, are also the founders of the International Accreditation Forum, a Delaware incorporated association of national and international accreditation bodies equivalent in accreditation to ANSI-ANAB. The IAF operates as a global framework, and its members are equivalent in accreditation to ANSI-ANAB. ANSI-ANAB are underwriters as a global framework, and its members are equivalent in accreditation. ANSI-ANAB are underwriters of both the IAF and its sister organization, the International Laboratory Accreditation Cooperation in Australia, bear legal responsibility for managing product and systematic failures associated with these certifications. This means that any failure, whether systematic or related to product quality, is a liability for ANSI-ANAP and the broader accreditation framework they oversee. Now let's talk about the real law-breaking. The Department of Homeland Security sits on the American National Standards Institute and the American National Crediting Board. I bring them into it because I've been to two of those meetings, the whistleblower in April of 2024, April 17th, where I stood up and I showed that Boeing relinquished on-site auditing for 22 years. I then went back on June 18th to see David Calhoun, who only knew about aerospace when he hit the golf ball off the tee, just aerodynamics, maybe. The Department of Homeland Security sits on the American National Standards Institute and the American National Crediting Board. These private nonprofits, unregulated by the federal government, control the certification standards that Boeing uses. Boeing is fully protected by this monopoly. DHS is not just a member of ANSI-ANAP, it is a customer paying a fee. That's illegal. Worse, DHS had one of its officials sit on ANSI-ANAP's board while simultaneously receiving $262,000 payment from ANSI-ANAP on top of their federal salary. Here are just a few laws and regulations they violated. 18 U.S.C. 208 prohibits federal employees from participating in matters where they have financial interest. 5 CFR 2635.702 prohibits the use of public office for private gain. 31 U.S.C. 702 prohibits the use of public office for private gain. And 1342 bars unauthorized acceptance of voluntary services. 5 CFR 2635 101 requires federal employees to uphold the integrity and impartiality of government oversight and service. This is not a gray area. This is black and white corrupt. And let me remind you, in 2002, Boeing issued internal supplier bulletins stating, if the need arises or if the need be, we may come to inspect. Otherwise, send your parts and certifications. These notifications specify the elimination of redundant inspections. That was in April and July of 2002. I brought those papers to the DHS Subcommittee on April 17, 2024, chaired by Senator Richard Blumenthal. DHS never reacted. Why? Because DHS is compromised. It's tied to ANSI and ANAP. It is co-founders of the International Accreditation Forum, which between 2015 and 21 was run by a communist Chinese national, Zhao Junwu, who's been involved with our quality since 1994. Under the Chinese National Intelligence Law, Article number 7 mandates espionage, and that's a major cybersecurity threat. ANSI and ANAP, IF and ILAC and Boeing, it's one massive shell game of liability protected by toothless politicians and funded by foreign-controlled certification schemes. So what's the takeaway? Conclusion. The April 2nd hearing was a performance, not an investigation. Maria Cantwell's campaign is funded by Boeing. Ted Cruz was ignored by the Army and his own guards. Meanwhile, a shareholder, me, was silenced for daring to speak the truth. This is no longer about airplane crashes or missing audits. This is about a system of government corporate collusion where fake oversight makes real corruption. The American people deserve better than actors in a taxpayer-funded soap opera. They deserve watchdogs, not lapdogs, tigers with teeth, not stripes, and above all, they deserve the truth. I'll say what no one else will ever say, ladies and gentlemen. The only man who can dismantle this system is, yes, Daryl Guberman. He has the evidence, he has the courage, and now give him the job and the microphone, and we will cure these ills. It won't be Elon Musk. I've been doing the same thing Dodge was back in 2012, exposing these federally funded bogus organizations like NIST MEP, the National Institute of Standards and Technology Manufacturing Extension Partnership in 50 states were supposed to help manufacturers. They only help themselves. You know why? Because they're part of the Department of Commerce. They both get state and federal funding where 64.85% of their funds go to pay their management and personnel. And most of those people don't know shit about manufacturing. Most of them. I'm not saying all, I'm saying most. I have a letter from one of the Air employees that said, Daryl, we are not-for-profit, so we would lend money to other not-for-profits. They lend money back to us. And inside the office, we were jokingly calling it money laundering. My number is 203-556-1493. And I thank you. Ms. Cantwell, we're waiting for you.